This is a picture of a dead lizard. It was killed at the Singapore Grand Prix after Fernando Alonso ran it over in cold blood. And people were absolutely devastated. No way Alonso killed that innocent lizard. Alonso killed the lizard, that heartless piece of shit. Disqualify Fernando for murdering the lizard. Aston Martin, have a word with your driver. That lizard probably had a wife and kids. How are you going to explain to the family? Minute of silence for that poor lizard. Fernando is a menace to lizard society. Fernando was the one who killed the lizard. Jail right now, lock him up. Yes! Throw him in jail! Reptile dysfunction. F1 fans distraught as Fernando Alonso runs over giant lizard. Reptile dysfunction. Have some bloody decorum. A lizard is dead. This is no laughing matter. Although, what was genuinely hilarious is the fact that people were absolutely steaming about Fernando killing the lizard. But when his teammate, the window licker, fucked it into the barriers and almost broke his neck, nobody cared.
Big crash on board with Lance Stroll.
Oh no. Anyway, last week...
He was fine. He wasn't fine. Lance Stroll will not participate in Sunday's race in Singapore. He had to sit out the race because he was, and I quote, still sore. So, to be clear, because I've had enough, that's enough now. We're not going to pretend as if any of this is completely acceptable. Every single race, this arsehole provides more and more evidence for why he doesn't deserve to be in Formula One. If any other driver was this incompetent, they would have been fired years ago. But we know that Aston Martin can't fire him because his dad pays their wages. He smashes the car to pieces every other race. He crashes into the other drivers. He is miles behind Fernando in the championship. And then in the latest exhibit, on his first run in Q1, Fat Boy was the slowest of everybody and over a second away from Fernando the Lizard Killer. And then on the final run, he was going even slower. And when he tried to make up for that in the final corner, he shags it into the barriers, completely destroys the car, and then can't take part in the race because he was in bed all day with a broken vagina. Do you know what? You really are a pathetic, incompetent, mouth-breathing, window-licking, spastic bastard, twat, hole, tosser, dickhead, knobhead, failed abortion, streak of piss, disgrace to the family name, inbred, stuck up, Poncy, Nancy, chintzy, pillow-biting, West Ham United supporting... I'm just really upset about the lizard. It affected me more than I realised. I shouldn't have done this today. I should have taken a few more days to be in mourning. Because do you know what? It probably did have a wife and kids. So RIP to the lizard and shout out to Lance Stroll's broken vagina. Now, let's get to the Red Bull meltdown at the Singapore Grand Prix, because both Red Bulls, for the first time in 5 years, were knocked out in Q2. Sergio Perez dropped it at the first corner, and Max Verstappen's fastest time was only good enough for 10th, until Liam Lawson, in only his third ever race in Formula One, goes faster and knocks out the world champion by 0.007 seconds. Jos Verstappen intensifies. And there was more, because after the session, Maxipad was under investigation, ×3. First, because he held everybody up at the end of the pit lane, nothing serious. Secondly, because he almost impeded Logan Sargent at the final corner, nothing too serious. And thirdly, because he did impede Sushi Tsunoda on his qualifying lap. Actually serious. That's a slam dunk 3-place grid penalty, thank you please. However, if Team LH have taught us anything, it's that the FIA is a white supremacist organisation. So Max Verstappen got away with just a reprimand, and then the FIA later admitted that it was a mistake and he should have got a penalty. Hashtag FIA fascists. So Red Bull line up 11th and 13th on the grid. Now it's over to Red Bull chief strategist Big Brain Hannah to figure out how to get Red Bull out of the depths of hell, otherwise known as the midfield. Her idea was start on the hard tyres, go long into the race and hope to get lucky with a safety car. That's a big brain move, because even with the spastic in bed with a broken vagina, the chance of a safety car at the Singapore Grand Prix is 100%. Unfortunately, when that safety car did arrive, it came at exactly the wrong moment. So when the race restarted, Red Bull got absolutely twatted by everybody. They tumbled down the order, and by the time they did make the pit stop, Verstappen and Perez came back out in 15th and last.
Get out of the way. Get out of my fucking way. Get out of my fucking way. Get out of my way!
I'm not in your way!
Fuck off upstairs then!
Alright, fine.
Fuck off!
R.I.P. Hannah, and shout out to her big brain. So, with both Red Bulls vanishing into thin air, everybody went into this race, cock in hand, expecting a banger, because finally we get to see what happens when Max Verstappen doesn't fuck off into the distance and win by 20 seconds. But, to be honest, it was still kind of shite. Yeah, we got to see Red Bull getting absolutely twatted, and there were a few nothing serious incidents. But apart from that, it was the same boring processional shite. Until Esteban Ocon's car remembered it was French and gave up like a socialist pig. That brings out the virtual safety car, and it was over to a woman called Rosie Waite. She is the chief strategist at Mercedes. She's like the regime version of Big Brain Hannah. Isn't that amazing that the two most powerful Formula One teams on the planet are run by women? Hashtag women in the workplace, hashtag feminism, hashtag all men are trash. So Big Brain Rosie pulls the biggest big brain move imaginable. A double stack under the virtual safety car while everybody else stayed out. Mercedes have given up a sure second and fourth place to go for the win. And can you imagine the size of Toto Wolff's pumpernickel if Mercedes win at the race where Red Bull imploded? But for that to happen, Osama bin Russell and Lewis Hamilton would have to catch up to the leaders and overtake all three of them in the space of 17 laps. Let's fucking do this! When the virtual safety car ended, the gap to Leclerc was 15 seconds. It took them 8 laps to get right up his arse. But if they wanted to win the race, they had to overtake him immediately. Well, guess what? They overtook him immediately. Osama bin Russell does a classic switchback maneuver, and Hamilton goes around the outside of turn 7. Now the regime is 3rd and 4th, 6.5 seconds off the lead with 9 laps to go. They can still do it! By the time they catch up to Norris and Sainz, there were still 4 laps left in the race. They've got a massive tyre advantage. Toto Wolff holds on to his pumpernickel because at the race where Red Bull imploded, Mercedes are going to get a 1-2 finish. Regime intensifies.
Auf der Weide blüht ein kleines Blümelein. Und das heißt Erika.
George Russell into the wall and out of the race!
No! Osama bin Russell jihads it into the World Trade Barrier and takes himself out of the race on the final lap. And in the post-race interview, Little Pumpkin was on the verge of tears. According to Ted Kravitz, he was walking around in sunglasses because he was crying his eyes out. And apparently, he was talking to himself, saying, "What am I, a fucking rookie?" That reminds me of that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Rick Dalton. I bet that's what it looked like after the race in the Mercedes motorhome.
What the fuck was that? Jesus Christ! Fucking bullshit! You're sitting there like a fucking baboon! I'm gonna blow your fucking brains out tonight.
R.I.P. Osama bin Russell, and shout out to his turban. So, Carlos Sainz wins the Singapore Grand Prix after Red Bull and the regime imploded. Team LH had their obligatory mental breakdown because Russell potentially cost Hamilton the win. That's debatable. But what isn't debatable is Fernando Alonso is a lizard killer, Lance Stroll is a disgrace to the family name, and Red Bull is now a midfield team. Unless they turn up in Japan and slap everybody as per.
Max Verstappen wins the Japanese Grand Prix. Red Bull are champions of the world.
9.